Hey guys, we are live. We are live. I just got done on Jason's show doing a little bit of last minute prep, and here we are. Danny Staten is eating pizza right now on account of us. Yes, we were talking a lot about food in that last final episode of Jason McLean Questions Everything. Hope you guys caught that. Hey there, Chiro Sounds. And there's Radio Vault. What's up, dude? My guy. All right. So I guess we're ready to begin. Okay, so tonight's topic is going to be about Korean shamanism. I guess it's time for me to share some fucked up paranormal stories that I've gathered. Not much, admittedly, because here's the thing. My knowledge of Korean shamanism is admittedly a bit limited. I heard the stories as a kid growing up. I did spend like 10 years in Korea. My experience with them personally was a bit limited. I did see what like their places and where they did their things. But then I also, once I found out my own lineage with Korean shamanism, I decided to do some deep digging. And tonight I just wanted to share some of the things that I've learned. Now, I couldn't fully research this topic as much as I would have liked to. I did try to like go online and search for like books for Korean shamanism to gain more knowledge, but unfortunately, the only real comprehensive book I could find on Korean shamanism was like $60 on Amazon. I'm like, God damn, $60. No, Overbuild, your grammar's fine. You just spelled my name funny, which is okay. I don't mind that. So yeah, don't worry, you have not sinned, Overbuilt. So yeah, hey guys, thanks for coming. Okay, so where do I begin on this topic? Korean shamanism. We don't really know its history. It dates back all the way back to prehistoric times. It predates Buddhism. It's basically a lot of these indigenous cultures. They have their own shamanic traditions. We see it in African cultures. We see it in South American cultures, European, and famously Native Americans. They have all their shamanic shit. Basically, every culture's got their own version of like magical ass people. And I guess this is our magical ass people, you know? So I guess, okay, I'll start from the beginning. The first stories I ever heard about Korean shamans actually came from my youth pastor when I was a kid. This guy's name was John. I went to an all Korean church, Presbyterian. So this was like conservative Christian. This wasn't like weird hokey dokey Christian. And I mean, my youth pastor, I mean, this guy went to like Yale, got his doctorate in theology. Hey, John P., what's up, dude? And it's the man, Midwest Night Watchers. And Susie B's here. Hey, everybody. Wow, you guys came to listen to some fucked up paranormal stories. Yeah. I know the last few shows have been straight comedy, but I also wanted to do some paranormal stuff. So I kind of, or cryptid stuff, like legit, like serious. And I do want to get into more like historical topics that interest me. More of the intellectual kind, I guess. I don't want this show to be just goofy nonsense because, yeah, I like the goofy stuff, but I don't want it to be just that all the time. Jason can't hog all the intellectual shit. I got some intellectual shit too, you know. So anyway, I digress. Going back to my pastor, right? So he was a Korean American like me. Well, I was born on this hemisphere. I was actually born in Toronto, Canada, but and grew up in New Jersey. My youth pastor, he actually was born in Korea, spent his formative years there, maybe like right before middle school, moved to the States. But naturally, Imagine that this guy grew up very conservative and very Christian. So let me give you a little bit of a backstory. And I came with pictures, guys. Something y'all's really ought to know, what really sets Korea apart from the other Asian countries like Japan and China, and even the Southeast Asian countries like Thailand and Vietnam, what sets Korea apart is that it's the only East Asian country that is mostly Protestant Christian. A lot of this had to do with a lot of missionaries came over pre and post war, but especially post Korean War. Christianity just boomed. And before that, the main religion was Buddhism. But now Korea is like of all the people who practice religion in Korea, I'd say like 60 to 70% of them are Protestant Christian, and probably the rest 30 to 40 are Buddhist practicing. Although the Korean version of Buddhism is a little different from other versions, but that's a whole other topic. So yeah, Korea is a very conservative Christian Protestant. You know, a lot of Methodists, not as many Baptists. It's mostly Methodists, Presbyterians. I'd say primarily those. You also see some Mormons there, which is kind of fucking weird. I used to see them all the time walking around. Korea was one of the destinations for Mormon dudes. I used to see them all the time, like these pasty ass looking like white dudes all wearing the same like short sleeved dress shirt, white dress shirt with a tie and black trousers, and they would walk around trying to evangelize. Although most of the people who followed them weren't really interested in the religion, they just really wanted a white friend. It's kind of a thing over there in Korea because a lot of Koreans, they've never hung out with a white person before, so they, hang out with a white friend. It kind of adds to their street cred. Plus, it also helps them learn English better, which helps them in society. So anyway, so prior to the 20th century, there was a lot of Buddhism, and pretty much everyone, like in a lot of these more traditional cultures, they had their own village shamans who were and again, it's very much like voodoo or Santeria, where they would perform rituals, perform magical spells, do incantations, but largely they would help people like witch doctors, right? They would do charms for people and shit. And if they were under paranormal attack, they were the ones you'd call to get them to get whatever entity or spirit out the fuck out of your house. These were the people you called. Until Christianity came along, and then the shamanic tradition started to naturally die, wither. Korean war didn't help much. All the shamans on the North Korean side were pretty much rounded up and executed. And even the ones that survived in South Korea were basically being pushed out of the cultural zeitgeist by the growing juggernaut that was Protestant Christianity in Korean society. So by the time I got there in 2006, there weren't many left. But the reason why I mentioned my pastor was because he told me this kind of crazy story. Even though he was a very conservative Christian who was very steeped in like biblical theology, he did love himself some paranormal stories, and because he thought it was real. He was very much into spiritual warfare, and he believed like the devil and demons were actual things. So I remember one time when I was in youth group, I was probably in high school at the time. He told me this one story where when he was a kid, probably about 8 years old, living in Korea, his family lived in this high-rise apartment. And next to this high-rise apartment was this traditional hut for a shaman to like live and perform her rituals. Korea's kind of like that, where they have like these ultra modern buildings, but mushed up against them are like these really old traditional looking homes. It's weird. You gotta really be there to see. Maybe some other time I can show you some pictures or videos or something. But he was telling me that, growing up, everyone told him, Stay the fuck away from that lady in that old house next to our apartment building." Shamans' houses are very easy to spot because in front of their doors, because it's basically traditional Korean homes are like an outer wall that leads into a courtyard, and then the house itself is basically like kinda like, it's like narrow and long, but arranged in like a square, and in the middle is like this inner courtyard. And yeah, this building or this shaman's house was next to my youth pastor's apartment building when he was a little kid, and he was up there on like the 20th floor, and he already knew not to be around this lady because his family, being very Christian, told him don't even go near them, right? And you can tell which houses are theirs because every shaman's house has a backwards swastika as a sign. It's their symbol, right? The backwards swastika. And I'm sure you guys know that the swastika was not originally from Nazi Germany, but it was actually more of an East Asian symbol. Primarily, I believe it got its roots in Tantric Hinduism, which is a form of esoteric Hinduism that started thousands of years ago in India. But it eventually caught on with the Buddhists and bled over to Eastern Asian societies. So that's where you get the backward swastika in front of every shaman's house. That's how you know that's where a shaman lives. And they advertise like that because people would still go to shamans for, their main source of income was they would do these rituals for blessings for people who, for example, start a new business. They would go to a shaman, ask them to bless it, good luck stuff. Every traditional culture's got their own version of that, right? Witch doctors. So my youth pastor, as an 8-year-old kid, one day he's looking out his window of his 20 on the 20th floor of this apartment. He's looking out the window and he's looking down at the shaman's property, and he sees this woman dressed exactly like this photo right here, right? The white shawl with the white hood, the pointed hood. And she's performing some kind of weird, fucked up ritual dancing because in Korean shamanism, a lot of the rituals, it's very much about dance, synchronized dancing. So much so that a lot of these shamans, one of their main sources of income, other than those lucky charms that they do for people, is actual public performances. And I've seen a few where they'll actually do like street performances where a group of them will do like traditional music and they'll do synchronized dancing. And it is my belief that the reason why so much of K-pop is so much group synchronized dancing, I believe it has roots in traditional shamanic cultural roots in Korea. I think that's why Korean dancers there's so much more dancing in K-pop than there is in like Western pop. And that I my suspicion and my inclination is to believe that that is why. So anyway, keep in mind, he's looking down on her at a distance from the 20th floor of this high-rise apartment building that's next to this lady's apartment complex. He's looking down at her all amazed, getting kind of scared, but also fascinated at the same time. He told me, and he says he'll never forget this. She stopped in the middle of her ritualistic dance. She stopped and she just looked up straight at him. If you consider the distance, like she knew in the middle of her dance, in the middle of her, I guess, frenzy, that someone was watching her. And then she just stiffened up and she looked up at this boy that was looking down at her from the 20th story of an apartment building. And she looked at him dead in the eyes. And my youth pastor told me that there was a coldness that he felt at that moment that he had never felt in his life before, nor since. Usually when it's cold, you know, it's on the surface going in. He said this coldness, like, it started from inside his chest and it went out. And he was like, it was the oddest feeling. I asked him, was it like kind of like a fever? And he was like, no, because a fever, you feel it, you still feel it on the surface. He was like, it started in the middle of his chest and it just kind of expanded out and it hit his spine. And he said he never felt anything like that before. Scared the shit out of him. And, as a pastor, as an ordained pastor, he told me a lot of stories about the culture of Korean pastors. They talk. They're like a little sewing circle. They talk amongst themselves. They gossip. They talk about, oh, you heard about what that guy did at that church. Kind of like me and my friends in the paranormal community. When the cameras go off, we gossip the shit out of people, which is one of the funnest things for me. But he told me that people would do like exorcisms. His pastors would do exorcisms for people that were possessed. And he told me some fucked up stories, like about some of the stories that other pastors told him that occurred in Korea. Again, because they like to talk to each other. He was telling me about how he wasn't there, but his friend was, who was also a pastor in a big church in Korea. Oh, and by the way, churches in Korea, let me show you what they look like. Bam. That is the Yoido Full Gospel Church. This is the biggest mega church in the world, according to Guinness Book of World Records. You know that Joel Osteen church? It's not as big as this church. At least not, I think the building might be bigger, but in terms of like the numbers of members, this is in the Guinness Book of World Record for being like the biggest or the most populous church. I've been there. I used to work like a couple blocks away from here. This is like I would say like the financial district in Seoul. This is like our version of Wall Street, but plop in the middle is this giant ass church. And these two buildings behind it, they are also part of the church. Yeah, that's what Christianity is in Korea. Anyway, so he told me like a couple of like the pastors, they were performing. There was this girl in the congregation, in one of the congregations that was possessed in Korea by a demon. So the parents, they beg and plead to the pastors to help their daughter to perform this exorcism. And the pastors are like, yeah, we'll do what we can. So, it's like a typical exorcism story you hear in most paranormal encounters. You know the deal, right? People, you have dudes trying to hold this girl down. She's like unnaturally strong. Guys are around her praying for her and telling the whatever creature to get out. And I was like, so what happened? And he told me that this girl stuck her tongue out. Like the guy was like, because the pastor in front of her was like, I demand you to show yourself, show yourself. And the girl who was possessed was like, oh, you want me to show myself? Here, I'll show you. And she sticks her tongue out, but her tongue, according to my pastor, according to what his pastor friend told him, her tongue stretched out like 5-6 feet. And at the sight of that, everyone in the room just freaked the fuck out and bounced. And according to the background, this was a Christian family. They don't know why she was possessed like that, but they wound up. So the pastors, they all fled, right? When they saw the sight of this girl stretching her tongue out like a chameleon, people were like, what the hell is that? And they just ran out the room. I mean, wouldn't you? I would. Shit, if I saw that. Damn. Anyway, I mean, that's the kind of shit that went down over there, I was like, geez. So in 2006, I moved to Korea. And by the time I moved there, I already knew not to mess with any shamans. If you see a shaman walk down the street, you give them a wide berth. I already knew that from all the kids from as a kid, the stories that I heard. um, yeah, that I mean to imagine that happening, I don't even know what I would do. So in 2006, I moved to Korea and I hook up with one of my best friends that I meet there. He was like this white American dude from Washington, D.C., biker guy, played in a heavy metal band. And he had just moved to Korea like a year before me, right? So he told me this story where his first year in Korea, the company that he was working for, they set him up in this like real ghetto apartment in like one of the slummiest parts of Seoul. And when he arrived there at the apartment, because the company that he worked for that was sponsoring his visa was also they were also paying all of his rent and all of his apartment fees and everything. So he basically got a free place to stay. But the thing is, the caveat was he couldn't choose the place. So he gets put in this ghetto ass apartment. And when he walks in with his two Korean assistants, who are employees of the company, who are basically told to help him set the place up and help him clean the place out. When they arrived at this ghetto ass apartment in this ghetto area in Seoul, the place was filthy. There was crap everywhere. The place was just in disarray. So, they get to cleaning. Keep in mind, my friend, he's new to the country. He doesn't even speak the language. He doesn't know anything about the culture. He's just there for a job. Uh, the two Koreans who are helping him clear the stuff out, they shaky English, mostly speak Korean, but just enough for them to communicate. And while they're cleaning this place out, my buddy, the two Koreans are in the other room cleaning the living room. My buddy's in the kitchen. He moves the refrigerator, and behind the refrigerator, there's this yellow piece of paper that is taped to the wall. And on it, it's got all these like old school Chinese characters, like ancient Chinese, written in red, just taped to the wall. My buddy has no clue what it is at all. So he's just like, whatever. Just rips it off the wall. Just rips it off. And when he does that, the two Koreans walk in. They see what he's done. Their faces go pale. Their mouths open. They're like, oh, you weren't supposed to do that. And they proceed to slowly back out the apartment, and they just leave. My buddy from DC, remember, American dude, no clue what's going on. So a couple weeks later, he's with his students. He's an English teacher teaching like college students and business people. And he tells them this story because he's legitimately curious now why those people had that reaction. So he asks his Korean students, hey, this is what happened to me. I found this piece of paper. It was yellow. It had this old school Chinese writing on it. I ripped it off. Whole classroom just gasps. And they're just like, oh, you weren't supposed to do that. My buddy has no idea. The paranormal activity that proceeds to occur in this apartment is just, after that day, is just off the chain. He would have friends over who would stay over. None of them would last a night because something real fucked up would happen. He had this one buddy visiting from the States who just wanted to check out what Korea was like. He flies all the way over from the States. It's like a 14-hour flight, by the way. He lands, my buddy picks him up. He takes him to his apartment to have him crash, right? Because he's tired after this long flight. My buddy's like, hey, man, Um, by the way, I forgot to say hi to folks. We got a few more people. What? YouTube's trying to hold me down? No, YouTube. Well, I do cuss a lot, and yeah, I get it. And I too talk about controversial topics. Well, good thing I'm not monetized. Wink. Anyway, where was I? So, oh yeah. So my buddy goes into the kitchen to fix him a drink. This guy, according to my buddy, he puts his bags down. He sits down on the couch, all tired, turns on the TV to see what's up, waiting for my buddy to prepare the drinks in the next room. The clock in front of it was basically hung over the TV. The clock proceeds to fly across the room horizontally and hits my friend's buddy in the square in the chest, who was sitting on the other side of the room. He proceeds to just get up, grab his bags. My buddy walks in with the drinks. He's like, "Hey, what's up? Where are you going?" And then the dude's like, "Nope, I am staying in a fucking hotel. Screw this." His first night there. My buddy told me that every time he went out to the bars, right, he would hook up with a girl, try to bring her back to his place. Nope, not happening. She would leave, oftentimes running out screaming. And then he told me one day, he was like, "Man, this paranormal shit's screwing with my love life. I mean, this is getting untenable." He eventually gets a girlfriend, right? He starts dating a girl. She sleeps over his place. They're sleeping in a bed. One day in the middle of the night, um, she wakes up, and this is what my buddy told me that she told him after the fact. She woke up to the sight of an angry looking old Korean man staring her like inches in front of her face. Right. And when she kind of got sense of what was going on, she's lying on her back on the bed, pitch dark, except she's seeing this old ass Korean man inches in front of her face. Then she realizes that not only is he inches in front of her face, but he is hanging down from the ceiling by his feet, and his body's like elongated like a snake, and it's like right up on her. She is traumatized. She is in panic. She screams. She gets up, gets dressed, gets her shit, and just bolts out the apartment, not even saying anything to my buddy. Until later on, a few days later, he finally gets in touch with her, asked her what happened, why she left. Was there anything I did? She told him, she finally and very reluctantly told him what she saw. But then he was like, "No, I get it, because every time I've had a friend over, very rarely do they last the night. And it's becoming a problem in my social life." The weirdest thing, though, was that it never bothered him. But he had no choice but to believe it, because it kept happening. So my buddy was like, I don't know why it didn't affect him. My suspicion was that he was like, when he was in America, he was in like metal bands and a biker dude, and he had a very sordid past. So I'm thinking whatever entities that were around him were like, he's cool, you know? Yeah, he was one of my closest friends in Korea. I miss that guy. Anyway, so yeah, he tells me that story, and I'm like, holy shit. Um, and me knowing what I know about Korean shamanism, and then finding out about a little bit more about like what they're about, and I'm just like, oh, they're exactly like the Asian version of voodoo priestesses. And I actually saw a few of those places with the reverse swastika, and I was like, oh, that's one of those places, huh? Damn. Fast forward a few years later, I'm in the States. Oh, Scott, yeah. He did move out of that apartment eventually. He actually showed me where it was because I actually met him after he had moved out. But yeah, one day he showed me where it was. And I was like, yo, I ain't going near that place. Fuck that. So when he told me that story, he asked me, Donnie, did you ever learn about that yellow paper as a kid? Like, did you ever hear any stories? I was like, no, I never heard of that yellow paper with the weird Asian Chinese writing on it. So one day when I was teaching my class, remember we were coworkers, right? So I was teaching my class of business people and college students, and I told them the story of what happened, and I got the same thing. They all gasped. Right. And I'm like, so guys, so what's up with the yellow paper? I mean, I'm Korean too. I grew up with Korean parents. I can speak Korean. How come I never heard of the yellow paper? Was it because I grew up in the States? And they're like, oh, let us explain. And I'm like, yo, this is some deep level Korean culture shit that I wasn't even privy to. Damn. And I've been eating kimchi every day all my life. And I can speak Korean. I didn't know about this shit. This is like deep, deep state stuff. They all, like everyone in the class, proceeds to take out their wallets and they all take out the same yellow piece of paper. I guess it's a smaller version meant to fit in your pocket or in your wallet. And it's each one's got their own like Chinese character on it. One by one, all my students, they start taking out this yellow paper. I remember there was this one like housewife there who was like looking at the whole thing. She was like, "Oh, surprised." I was like, "Oh my god!" She was like, "Oh my gosh, you all have the yellow paper." And then she suddenly realized, "Oh, wait a minute!" And then she opens her purse and she's like, "Oh, I got the yellow paper too." Apparently, it's just kind of a thing. People just get it. And basically, what you would do is you would just go to a. So what they are that Chinese writing, it's an ancient form of Chinese that's not used anymore. It's like a dead version of it, and it's the Asian version of like runes. And you know how in like these traditional Scandinavian cultures, they would use runes as like each one would have a different purpose. Um, why Chinese? Because Koreans only started using the Korean alphabet system. I think in like the 1400s. That's when they adopted it. Prior to that, it was their version of Chinese characters, which was not the same as Chinese person's Chinese characters. Like a Chinese person wouldn't be able to recognize the words, they wouldn't be able to read it. It's a thing. It's a thing. Anyway, you have to excuse my coughing and my throat clearing, guys. Number one, I'm a smoker, but number two, I'm not physically used to just talking just like this, monologuing. Like I'm more used to conversations where I can like stop and pause, but I can't do that when I'm just talking solo. But yeah, so what people would do is they would go to these shamans, and you would tell them like what you're looking for, or what's going on in your life. Like you might get one like Korean rune for like to help your love life, or one to boost your luck at school so you could get better grades, or maybe help you in business, or maybe fuck over someone that you hate, whatever, right? And there's a different one for different types of people. And yeah, and I think I bet you for the shamans, that's like the boringest part of their job, because they're just like, okay, what do you need? Okay, let me calligraphy the shit. Here you go, right? That was like their cheap parlor shit that they would make money with. But there were some, like the more serious ones, where they were there to bind certain evil spirits or to keep certain evil spirits away. Because Korean shamanism, they've got their own, a lot of it's about ghosts, a lot of it's about spirits and magic and rituals. And in learning about it, it actually made me realize what like made me see ghosts and the paranormal from a very different angle. And also it's cool to know like what's different and what's similar or what they have in common. So, anyway, when I came to the States years later and I got into this scene, I very much kind of by accident found out that my lineage, like my great grandmother or my great great grandmother, was one of these people. So I'm kind of descended from them. Although shamanism isn't really, it's not really inherited. It's something you got to actually like, become an apprentice. And so just because you're like the son of one or the grandson of one doesn't really mean all that much. It's just kind of cool. I was like, oh shit, I didn't know my great great grandma did that kind of stuff too. Damn. Okay. So yeah, once I found that out, and that's a whole story. I've told it a bunch of times. I don't feel like telling it, folks. I want to talk about what I want to talk about. So if you want to hear that story of how I found out, just watch whatever podcast, whatever that I'm in. You'll find it eventually. I can't tell you which episode of which show. I've been in so many podcasts now. Like there are podcasts. I'll be flipping through YouTube and I'll see like a podcast appearance that I did on a show. I'll be like, I don't even remember doing that. And it's not a brag or anything. It's just repetition hours. It's just one of those things. I'm sure a lot of my other friends, like Jason would agree. He's told me the same thing. Like he'd be flipping through YouTube and be like, I don't even remember doing this show. Do you know the series Grimm? You must know about the beasts and their powers. I know the series. I didn't get into it too deeply, so I'm probably not privy on all of them, unfortunately. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah. So I find out that I'm related to one, and then I also have the stories that I had as a kid. And okay, I'm gonna really clear my throat. I'm gonna pause. Anyway, sorry about that. But I'm gonna do awkward shit because it's my goddamn show. I might even fart on camera one of these days. You never know. I could if I wanted to. Damn it. Anyway. Oh, it's so fun having power for once. This is a new and novel feeling, guys. I hope I don't abuse it. Anyway, so because I find that out, I started getting interested and I started trying to research it and trying to learn about all the different stuff about the paranormal and what I learned about ghosts through them. I did find out a really cool Nephilim story, the Prince's Body story. You guys might have caught that on Jason's show or actually Texas show early on. But according to Korean shamanic myth, their patron saint, Princess Bari, who was this Korean princess, to make a long story short, has to go to the Middle East, travel west, dresses up as a boy so as not to get accosted on the road, encounters the Buddha, who recognizes her. Hey, Cathedra Cat Gray. What's up, Derek Galloway? It's nice seeing y'alls. So she encounters the Buddha on the way to the Middle East. And the Buddha's like, he recognizes her right away. He recognizes it's a girl dressed up as a dude. And Buddha was like, oh, hey, why are you dressed up as a guy? And she's like, well, I have to fetch this magical water from these ancient rivers in this ancient land where all life sprang. Based off, well, based off how she's describing it and how I interpret it, she was going to the Garden of Eden. Like I mean, the direction she was going, being told that this is where all life sprang, going to these two holy rivers and getting the water from there. I mean, that sounded like the Garden of Eden to me. So as soon as the Buddha recognized where she was going, that she was going to the Middle East, the Buddha was like, "Ooh, you're going there? You're gonna want to watch out for giants." And she was like, "What?" And in some version of the stories, Buddha even specifies, "Yeah, there are these like redheaded, there are these giants living around there now. They got like red hair, and they're gonna want to try to fuck you." And she's like, "What?" Yeah. So, yeah, sorry but that's what you're gonna find there if you go to that area. So, yeah, make a long story short, she had to go there. She encountered the giant. Giant said, "I'll let you take a bit of the water, but first you got to stay here and bear me children." She agreed to do so. She goes back to Korea to use this water to save her parents, only to discover that they're both already dead. So, that is their patron saint. Our patron saint, actually. So, yeah, Korean shamanism myth has a Nephilim story. I told that to Jason. He was like, "Whoa." So I told it on his show early on. Um, so tonight I am just going to share with you some of my findings. Again, I couldn't find much because that one book on Amazon was like $60, and I ain't paying $60 for no goddamn book. Shit, that's video game money. $60. I might as well buy the new Call of Duty with that kind of money. Anyway, so yeah, most of what I know or what I've researched about shamans is just stuff I've read online or videos I've seen on YouTube of like documentaries and interviews. But I've learned some things, and I'm going to share with you some things. First and foremost, they have a real interesting way of recruiting people. A real fucking interesting way. Basically, if you're just a regular person and your house is haunted, you're under a supernatural or paranormal attack in your home, or let's say a family member is possessed by an evil spirit, you can go to one of these shamans and they'll get rid of it pretty easily. There's one catch though. Their price, they don't ask for money. They ask that whoever is possessed now has to train and become a shaman. If you don't agree to that, then we're not going to help you. Go call the Christians. Good luck with that. That's their price. Like you could have the most fucked up haunting situation, or maybe your kid is full on exorcist possessed. But they say, yeah, we can get rid of it tonight. But from this point on, that girl, I mean, she's still your daughter. She still lives with you. But now her field of study and her life's work is going to be a shaman. She's going to be our apprentice. We'll teach her everything we know. She'll be able to earn a living, but that's what she's got to be. Other people feel the calling. That's not the only way they recruit, but that's their price if they are going to perform like an exorcism on that level. Sometimes more modern ones will do like more nowadays they don't do it like that anymore. Nowadays I believe they will do it, but you got to pay them a buttload. And I learned a bit about some of their exorcism rituals, which I will show you some pictures of right now. Yeah, this is kind of what they do. They will they'll slaughter a pig, and then they'll do a dance, and basically they will force whatever evil spirit to go into the body of the pig, and then they will proceed to cut it up. It's pretty gnarly stuff. I've got a couple other pictures here. If it's disturbing, good. Stop being a puss. That's one licking a bunch of. If you go to one of these shamans places, they have you'll see like a lot of knives and blades hanging around. Uh, Silver and iron apparently are what the blades of choice, the metals of choice. And part of the ritualistic dance they do for performing exorcisms is that they will go into like this frenzied trance. There will be music because everything is, again, dancing, ritual music. And later on, once I get video capability, I'll show you some examples of some of these like public performances. But a lot of these dances, they're basically picking up these blades, these iron blades, and they're stabbing, not actually stabbing the people, but they're making stabbing motions in the dance, which is one of the reasons why I connected K-pop with Korean shamanic dancing, because those are a couple videos where they were doing their dance routine in the K-pop video, but then they're all making a stabbing motion, the same stabbing motion, like because it's a very because the stabbing motion they do in the dance, it's not like this. They don't do this. They'll do it like this, right? It's a very particular way of the motion, and according to their belief system, the thing that evil spirits or demonic entities seem to really dislike are iron and silver. And when they see someone coming at them with an iron blade, apparently that's supposed to scare the bejesus out of these things. So they're just like, okay, okay, we'll jump into this pig, and then they do this shit. Yeah, that's her with the blade in her mouth, by the way. So yeah, these people are pretty hardcore. Yeah, yeah, that's exactly what I think. One of the first things I thought of when I learned about that was like, didn't Jesus kind of do that with the pigs? Huh, that's kind of interesting. So they do have a lot. Okay, so I learned a lot about ghosts actually reading about them because we here in the West, we paranormal nerds. I'm not judging y'all because I'm admit myself, I am a paranormal nerd. Um, we have our similar thoughts and ideas of what ghosts are or what works with them, right? Because everyone's got different ghost stories, but if you listen to enough of them, you start noticing patterns of what ghosts can and can't do, what they typically do, right? Everyone's got similar stories. Shadow people getting scratched at 3 a.m., getting your foot tugged in bed, getting sick, um, seeing a mist, and all the same shit, right? They're all the same. Korean shamanism, they're a little bit more detailed and specific about which kinds of ghosts can do which kinds of things and what kinds of people wind up what kinds of ghosts. A lot of it's very detailed. For example, like they've got this one thing where if you die while out traveling out on the road and you've got unresolved shit, you may come back as a certain type of ghost with these properties, right? A, B, and C. Whereas if you were out at sea or on a boat and you wind up drowning, you wind up with as this kind of ghost, D, E, and F. It's kind of interesting to see, like, their recognition of the patterns is different, right? Another thing that I learned is that very much like the Western paranormal world with orbs, right? That's another big thing in Asian paranormal is orbs. Except with Korean shamanism, they're a little bit more specific. One of the things they teach is that, according to their lore, if you're out in the woods, the orbs you see, depending on how they're moving and what color they are, it's a different, I guess, idea or message or meant to be interpreted in a different way. But needless to say, if you're ever out in the woods late at night and if you see specifically blue orbs, that's the sign to turn around and get the fuck out. Specifically if they're blue. Other different types of orbs might not necessarily be that interpretation. Another one of the things that I've learned, and they have their own different types of ghosts, but according to Korean shamanic lore, the one ghost you do not want to see, they call the egg ghost. That's the ghost where if you see this ghost, you are fucked. That means you are going to die, or someone close to you is going to die. Let me show you what the egg ghost, according to their lore, is supposed to look like. That's the egg ghost. Now, the reason why it's called the egg ghost is because the face is like a smooth surface, kind of like the shell of an egg. And it's the same color, like white, and it looks kind of like the similar texture. But if you see an apparition, like a fully formed apparition, but their face is just blank, but smooth and glossy like that, kind of like the surface of an eggshell, that means, yeah, you're dead. That's the one ghost you don't want to see. I mean, you'd rather take shadow people over that any day of the week. But this is serious bad news. And hold on, let me hide this. So why is the egg ghost serious bad news? According to Korean shamanic lore, there actually is a way to destroy a ghost. I mean, actually destroy it, not make it pass over into the afterlife, like to actually just annihilate it. It's really hard to do. It's nearly impossible over here. But basically, there are a couple things you can do when faced with a ghost, right? You can get it to leave, you could convince it to cross over, or you could straight up fucking destroy it. The only way to destroy a ghost is if you wipe out all genetic trace within the living population off the map. Not just descendants. I'm talking about like distant relatives. Right? Like anyone who might be even slightly related to you, anyone with your bloodline, or with that ghost's bloodline, direct descendants or distant cousins, they all have to be wiped off the earth or the map. They all have to be dead. Once that is achieved, that particular ghost is totally destroyed. Not to insinuate that means the soul is destroyed, but whatever that entity is just ceases. The thing is, that's really hard to do, especially in like a place like the States or like European or Western societies. But because think about it, every white person you ever see in the States who are like born and bred American, what is their bloodline? It's going to be a mix of like 2, 3, or 4 different things, right? You'll so rarely meet like a white American person who's been here for several generations who's like got 100% German blood. That is like not common at all, right? So to be able to wipe out a ghost like that in the Western world is nearly impossible because the bloodlines are so mixed and diluted and spread out. You couldn't do that. Like how even if there was a Native American spirit, you couldn't wipe it out like that because there's so many people who are like a small percent Native American. The thing is, Korea is a bit different because in Korea, the country's a lot smaller, populations are a lot more isolated, so it's easier to actually achieve that, to actually wipe out an entire fucking genetic tree of one bloodline. So, how does this relate to the egg ghost? The egg ghost is basically when a ghost is about to be destroyed, meaning its last living relative is about to die. The ghost manifests as the egg ghost, which is basically it trying to take someone out before it's fully destroyed. It's like, I've got nothing left to lose. I'm about to go out. I'm going to take someone out with me. And, the Korean shamans will say, if you ever see an egg ghost, the one that's about to be destroyed, it's already too late. So that is in their lore, like the number one thing you don't want to see. Thankfully, I don't think that kind of thing would be possible here because, well, maybe with some Native American bloodlines. But yeah, you would have to wipe out every single genetic trace of that ghost in life off the planet in order to achieve that, according to their lore. I found that very interesting. So yeah, these are the Korean shamans. I guess the one thing, again, they're not too different from like people who are into voodoo or Santeria or even like pagan practitioners or whatever. But I find the thing that does set them apart, I would say, is their music, their dancing. I mean, even their rituals, even though they look pretty gnarly. I mean, there's some of these other rituals that look pretty gnarly too. So I'm not going to even say that's going to look too different. And yes, I do think that a lot of Korean shamanic traditions did bleed over into K-pop, because one of the things I noticed that's real interesting about K-pop, going back to my earlier point, a big portion of Korean society is very conservative Protestant Christian, a majority of it. And Korea is distinct and unique amongst East Asian countries for that. And K-pop, the result of Korean culture, is like this worldwide behemoth that's pretty much got everyone in its grips, right? But the funny thing about K-pop, you don't ever see any references to any kind of Christianity whatsoever. But you also see, that looks shamanic. So I'm like, oh shit. And one of the shamanic things, speaking of music, I now have to show you this. Could there be a connection? Look at the clothes. Look at the motifs. Look at the way they've influenced music. Here's another example. This is a male shaman. Male shamans and female shamans are different. Look at the picture on the left and look at the picture on the right. When you think back on those clothes that the Elvis wore, keep in mind, after having come back from Korea, and you compare it side by side, makes you wonder, doesn't it? I mean,
You need to stop.
Excuse me, who are you, sir?
You may call me Mason Jacqueline.
Mason Jacqueline?
Certainly not Jason. You don't know me.
Okay.
I'm an anonymous whistleblower.
How did you hack into my show like this, sir?
I'm an anonymous whistleblower, Donny. I can do anything.
Mason
But you need to
Jacqueline.
stop.
Stop what?
You have to drop the Elvis. It's too dangerous. You need
what could you
to
mean?
get off. You got to get off. You got to drop the Elvis.
But
it's
why?
too dangerous.
Tell me what you know, sir.
I
Mr.
can't.
Jacqueline.
They'll find me. Wait. No. They found me. No.
What? Sir. Hello? He just hacked into... Who the fuck was that, guys? I mean, Mason Jacqueline. Who's Mason? And why does his voice sound oddly familiar? Whoa. Anyway, guys, that is a question that the North American Elvis Project is going to need to investigate. And don't worry, guys, the North American Elvis Project will be on it, and we will get to the bottom of it. But back to shamans. Yeah, so that was my presentation on Korean shamans. They're pretty cool. They're pretty badass. I think they're actually secretly running K-pop. And I have some of the shit that I see in those videos. Oh, I will be showing you guys, and you will understand what I mean, right? Oh no, it's not Jason. No, Jason just finished his last show. Don't you? Did you guys not watch his last show? We just did like a couple hours ago. No, he's done with podcasting. That was like his last appearance ever. Whoever the fuck that was. I mean, this guy's got some serious hacking skills, but I don't know who that guy was. This Mason Jacqueline. But oh, man, what happened? He was going to say something important about the Elvis. Guys, yeah, the North American Elvis Project is going to need to get to the bottom of this. But yeah, thank you for listening. I hope you enjoy my presentation. Did you guys have any questions, by the way? No? All right. Well, yeah, I guess I'll leave it at this. I think it was a fun one, guys. And don't worry. Don't feel like this is the end of whatever the fuck that was, because the North American Elvis Project is on the case, folks. It's on the case. Good night.